But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the house it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And this has been quite a week. Lots of bullshit, lots of jabronis. It's been, it's fairly intense. So, people in chat last week were really interested in, like, what I had to say about the whole Plattner thing, and I had not really been paying attention to the Plattner thing because, I mean, other than I'd heard that there was the tattoo, but other than that, I hadn't really paid attention because I didn't really pay attention to Maine for the most part. Like, the main thing I even know about Maine, other than where it is that it's the reason it takes 18 hours to get from Montreal to Moncton, because the train goes around the outline of Maine, rather than doing something sensible like just going straight through it. Which is why, really, Canada should have Maine, just to facilitate rail travel. But, yeah, so I decided to look into that a little bit, because I prefer to actually have takes on things when I actually know something about them. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about that. I mean, in the overall context, this is a good context to just remember the importance of due diligence. Because there's all sorts of people out there who want to grift off of things politically that look opportune to them. I mean, and one of the biggest areas of this, I mean, there have always been people who will try to sort of latch on to, for example, Palestinian solidarity in order to try to divert it to their bullshit agenda. I mean, white supremacists have been doing this for ages. And you also get just the occasional dodgy grifter. And also, like, the world of sort of being against Trump is full of people who are essentially, if you look at them, if all you ever hear about them is that they don't like Trump, I mean, you can kind of get, saying bad things about Trump is just such a fucking low standard that, like, most people do it. But then when you actually start to look into who these people are connected to and what they're actually for, then it begins to look a little bit dodgy. I mean, you have, like, independent creators who are actually bankrolled by dark money groups. You have the obligatory Republican whistleblowers who are in the administration and they totally were against the worst things, except it turns out maybe they were lying about that. And they've lied about other things since, and they're connected to all sorts of dodgy shit. And what I'm saying is, when you start seeing somebody, especially somebody getting promoted a lot in a particular political space that you haven't seen before, and suddenly they're all over the place, it's worth going and just doing a little bit of searching. Look up their name, find out where they've been, what they're connected to. Like, are there any, like, dodgy things that they're connected to, or are they decent? What's their background? Where did they come from? And what do they actually stand for? Because, like, lots of people say Trump sucks. The thing is, a lot of the people who say that Trump sucks share that in common with him. There are lots of people who suck who also hate Trump, because hating Trump is just an easy thing to do. He makes it very easy to hate him. It's something he's good at, being hated. So due diligence and just observing certain minimum standards, generally not a bad idea. Okay, so I thought there was a good video by The Cavernacle that I thought we'd look at a little bit, called "We Need to Talk About People Defending a Fascist Tattoo." It showed up in my recommendations. If you haven't seen it, I'm dropping the link in chat. Speaking of chat, how are you doing there in chat? Hope you've had a decent week. But I thought he did a good job of summing this up, so... sorry. I'm gonna look at this first.
First of all, what we're watching there was Graham wearing just his boxer briefs, singing
the Marine Corps.
Okay.
Silkies. Those are Marine Corps running shorts.
Pardon me, Silkies. First of all, great song choice. Tell us what's happening there.
I mean, okay. I mean, it's pretty clear what's happening there.
Where you are, there's probably some listeners who are very confused. And the reason that we are showing...
I mean, they're probably confused why he has a Nazi tattoo, though.
This video is because at the very end you can see a tattoo on your chest. And I've been told that...
I mean, you could see it in the bit that he already showed.
Political opponents are telling reporters that that tattoo has a Nazi affiliation.
I mean, okay, that may be the people telling reporters that, but that's just a weird way to put it, because literally that is the Totenkopf tattoo. This is literally on every single SS uniform. Depending on the rank, either it was on their hat, on their peaked cap, on the band, or also on the collar or lapel. But and there was also an entire unit named after it, the Totenkopfstandarte. This is it is a Nazi tattoo, and even crediting that he did not know that initially. For the idea that he would not have found out about it subsequently is kind of hard to believe.
And I would like to know, is that accurate? Are you a secret Nazi?
I am not a secret Nazi. Actually, if you read through my Reddit comments, I think you can pretty much figure out where
but
I stand on Nazism.
Right.
Okay, except that is not hard. I mean, first of all, people have alt accounts, so it's like, at this point, if you've got a Nazi tattoo, the fact that there's a public-facing Reddit account that is well known to be associated with you does not actually tell the whole story, and it's not all that impressive.
And anti-Semitism and racism in general. I would say a lifelong opponent.
Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead here. Actually,
video is from my brother's marriage to his wife, to my sister.
Like, who gives a shit? I mean, nobody cares why he had his shirt. I mean, that's not what matters. It's what we saw when he took his shirt off that matters.
Who I was serenading, and it was my third deployment. My previous two had been to Fallujah and then Ramadi.
Okay, which is to say, some of the worst atrocities the U.S. committed in Iraq, he was involved in them. Like Fallujah, Ramadi. The shit that the U.S. did there was, like, historically horrible.
And we went ashore in Split, Croatia, myself and a few of the other machine gun squad leaders, and we...
Okay. First of all, Split is supposed to be lovely, but also Croatia is also kind of fash heavy because of the Ustasha. And okay, now I'm gonna skip a little bit.
Well, but I think this
case study is such a good example why people generally don't trust Western white leftists. And if you guys follow me previously on Twitter, now on Blue Sky, yes, I've made lots of jokes about American leftists actually often being fascists and stuff. These are jokes, but the truth of it is lots of Western leftists, and especially American leftists, still cannot unpick the brainwashing and propaganda when it comes to the US military.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good point that he made, I thought. Because, I mean, one of the things that I had not actually realized, because again, I didn't really pay attention to this guy's biography, I barely paid attention to Plattner in the first place, is the chronology. He was involved in some of the worst shit the US did in Iraq, left the military. Years later, in his mid-30s, he decides he's going to work for Blackwater, which at that point was already utterly notorious as a massacre for hire outfit, committing atrocities in Afghanistan. Like, you know, as you do when you're a totally progressive person.
The biggest, takes I've often gotten pushback on is my criticism of US veterans who still use the veteran title as something that gives them, I don't know, some sort of insight or prestige. Like I've always said, if you did serve in the military, going around and telling everyone you're a veteran, and somehow as a leftist veteran that makes your voice more credible, I don't think personally is a good thing, especially...
I mean, I will say, it's there are two kinds of credibility there. There is credibility in terms of knowledge of how certain things work. Inside knowledge of how certain things work, of how certain discussions were had, of the culture in certain institutions, and potentially somebody who has previously been inside them and realizes how horrible they are and decides to leave them does have a certain credibility when talking about those subjects about those particular subjects. Like, one of the reasons that Greg Stoker is worth listening to on what the IDF is doing, what the genocide in Gaza, and just the military aspect of it is, A, he actually knows about that stuff, and B, he also realized that he shouldn't have been there, and that he was on the wrong side of history, and he's trying to make up for it by being an anti-war veteran. So, I mean, but the thing is, of course, the idea that having been in the military immediately gives you some sort of general political credibility is nonsense. Like, I mean, it's like, it's Xander Hall grade nonsense, because, like, Xander Hall's whole thing is that you should totally listen to him on the subject of the far right and what to do about it, because he used to be a fascist. I mean, we'll pretend that is entirely in the past, and that he doesn't have a whole lot of extremely fascy viewpoints even now, though it's been a while since I subjected myself to him. But, I mean, and that's bullshit. Because the thing is, if you are part of a movement like that, or an institution like that, that is, like, and you realize that was bad, what you're acknowledging is that you fucked up on a fundamental, like, political and moral level, and that there is some work you need to do on yourself. That is not a time when you should be, like, in a political leadership position. If you've realized you fucked up, you realize that what you did was bad, and you want to, like, atone for that, that's good. That is good. That is a good starting point. But there's a lot you need to actually work through before you should be a person whose judgment is political judgment is entitled to any kind of deference, if ever.
Actually, when you're not from a country where they have the draft and you just, like, I don't know, spent 2 years in an office.
Hey, Phoenix.
Doing some drills on the side.
Good to see you.
Were in the volunteer military doing some of the worst war crimes in the world. But for people...
I will say, there does need to be an asterisk. This does not apply to Plattner, I should be clear. There does need to be a bit of an asterisk near volunteer, because as somebody who went to a high school that was, I would say, probably overwhelmingly below even the official U.S. poverty line in terms of the student body, the degree to which the military gets just shoved up your ass the entire time. Like, the recruiters are just roaming the fucking hallways looking for somebody who looks like an easy mark. There's all sorts of manipulation to get you involved in it. You get that, and then you have things like, you take the ASVAB test, the military aptitude test, and you get the rest of the day off. If you don't take the test, you don't get the rest of the day off. But what they don't tell you is that they're going to forward your information to recruiters, and those motherfuckers are going to be calling you 3 times a week for the rest of your life until you give them some sort of reason to shut the fuck up. So, what movies are you watching? So, I mean, there is an aspect of this that is, I would say, not at all strictly voluntary, in the sense that you have, for one thing, in the U.S. it is completely legal, despite it being illegal under international law, to recruit literal children. You can recruit, that's what JROTC is. That's recruiting children. It is a violation of the International Convention on the Rights of the Child. All sorts of manipulation, and it's specifically directed against people who have no real future in this economic system. But that's not fucking Graham Plattner. Plattner comes from money. His father is like a world famous architect. He's not an oyster shucker. He has oyster shuckers working for him. He is not a poor boy from a poor family sparing his life from this monstrosity. I've never seen Sleepaway Camp. Night of the Living Dead, I think I saw years ago. That was good. My personal favorite in the genre is Aliens. Really, both of the Aliens, because I just like that both of them include Sigourney Weaver warning everybody, being right, and then it's only her and her cat who survive.
People like Hassan Piker and the Majority Report, someone like Graham Plattner being a veteran of some of the worst wars this century is actually a good thing, which is even more bizarre because he's not exactly unrepentant about his service.
I think what he means to say is not exactly repentant. Get Out is really good. I thought Get Out was amazing. And one of the things that really blew my mind that I did not realize is the guy who plays the main character, whose name I'm not remembering, he's English. Usually I can pick up on when English people do a US accent because I've heard so many bad ones on British TV. But I could not pick I could not pick his accent at all. He is actually from England.
This straight before we talk about the video. Graham Plattner is not a Ron Kovic figure. He is not someone who was brainwashed and served in the military because of this brainwashing.
You could say that maybe initially that's part of it. Initially, yes, there's a lot of that goes on. But that does not explain, and you can take that into account. I don't think you have to deny that. But the question, if he plays the main guy who goes to Bradley Whitford's house, who plays Chris, right? Yeah, that was good. I had no idea that he was English until somebody did a video reacting to British actors doing US accents and doing it so well that you absolutely can't tell. And some of the ones that they listed I could tell. But him, I had no idea.
Came out disillusioned and then spent his life fighting against US militarism and protesting all these wars, including the Iraq War. Graham Plattner was a guy who said he knew the Iraq War was wrong and then did 3 tours of Iraq in some of the most brutal battles there where the most civilians died in places like
Fallujah, when people occasionally people will be like, what Israel's doing in Gaza is so much worse than what anything the US has ever done, and it's like, if you know anything about Fallujah, you know that's just not true. what the U.S. did in Fallujah, that fucking massacre, was absolutely a prototype for what Israel has been doing in Gaza. Yeah. I mean, from my experiences as a Jew in Germany, I have to say I've often thought there is totally... You could do an adaptation because because there is a lot of very similar shit being Jewish in Germany. Like especially that specific scene, the I would have voted for Obama a third time. The kind of shit you hear in Germany if somebody like finds out you're Jewish, and it's like, oh, I love the Jews, and it's like, okay, get me the fuck out of here. That's frightening. I don't even like all of the ones I'm related to.
That had been permanently poisoned, and then he left the military after serving in Afghanistan and Iraq, and in 2018, in his like early 30s, he joined Blackwater.
Yeah, at this point, Blackwater was absolutely notorious. I mean, Jeremy Scahill's book had come out years before. I mean, Blackwater, I think, was already on its fucking third rename at that point. There is absolutely no excuse to join Blackwater. And again, this guy was not hurting for money. He isn't an oyster shucker from Maine. His family owns the company.
After they changed their name because they'd massacred Iraqis.
Twice, actually. They had gone from Blackwater to XE to Academy misspelled.
And under Donald Trump's presidency, served as a contractor for the US government in Afghanistan. So the rehabilitation of this guy already, I've spoke about before, it's insane. Because, again, he's not a Ron Kovic figure. He's not even like an Oliver Stone figure, someone who...
I mean, I don't know, does he mean Oliver Stone the director? Because Oliver Stone the director is dodgy as shit politically. But yeah, I mean, I like his point here because there's a difference between having done that and what you do afterwards. If you come out of that and you say, wait a second, that was horrible, that shouldn't have been allowed to happen, I need to dedicate my life to making this stop, that's one thing. And you can, when you're kind of making your evaluation of where a person stands, that's something that you would take into account. But if instead they get involved in this, are involved in some of the worst atrocities, and then go and decide years later that they want to do more of it, like that, you gotta take that into account too. So, I mean, on a certain level, the fucking tattoo is absolutely the least of it.
Became disillusioned with the military and the US government and made like these works talking about the Vietnam War. This guy has actually said on Reddit he wishes he could have fought in the Vietnam War. I just don't understand.
Jesus Christ!
How American leftists, especially...
Like, I mean, you don't get to have eyes closed about that one. Like, you don't... I mean, in 2025, the 2020s, when literally it is just the sort of pretty much the general consensus that invading and occupying Vietnam and murdering millions of people there was a bad thing to do, announcing that you wish you could have gone is a fucking choice.
White American leftists are so easily fooled by these people believing they are like someone who's going to lead the revolution, and they're actually good because they were in the military and then became a leftist. And then you shouldn't be surprised when more controversy comes out that yes, this guy also has a Nazi tattoo on his chest, which fits in line with a lot of stuff we know about the War on Terror era.
And a lot of stuff we know about both the Marines and Croatia. Like, it's not a mistake. It's not an accident that a fucking Totenkopf would be on the menu at a tattoo parlor in Split. Because Croatia has a lot of fascists. There are a lot of people who are big fans, hold high the legacy of the fucking Ustasha. Croatia had such a vicious fascist movement that it was the one place where the Nazis allowed a death camp to be operated without direct German supervision. Jasenovac it was called, and it was operated under the supervision of Croatian Catholic priests.
With the US military being filled with both Nazi iconography and also like actual Nazis, right? So I'm not saying this Graham Plattner is an ideological Nazi or anything like that, but to discount.
But I mean, knowing these things about him, these are the sort of things where if you were trying to get a handle on where somebody actually stands and what of their, political positioning in public is career-driven and what of it is sincere, you would say, okay, this requires further examination. What else has this guy said? Does he have any other social media accounts? It's what I was saying earlier. Do fucking diligence. You need to do it because there's so many dodgy people, and there's so many people who have realized that, like, progressives and sort of left-leaning liberals in the U.S. are so fucking desperate to hear somebody connected to the political class who at least sounds like they, like, drink water and breathe air, that they are willing to overlook all sorts of fucked up shit.
His actions and his life, and pretend that isn't actually a representation of his worldview at all, even when he was doing the exact same shit when I was making YouTube videos in 2018, by the way. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, and also 2018, let's just remember. By 2015, I remember, suddenly, for, mysterious reasons, lots of spotter graphics started to go around social media, listing, fascist iconographies, symbols that people might not be familiar with. And they were all over the place, particularly in like 2015, 2016, you'd see them. And the Totenkopf was definitely on them. And at that point, if no earlier, a person who unwittingly got that tattoo, not knowing what it stood for, would be probably on notice of what they got. And they would, and the only appropriate response to that point is to be appalled and find out the easiest way to get it removed.
Insane, and shows why white leftists, why we have a reputation that we can't be trusted. Not only have we broadly promoted this guy already, most people now on Twitter are defending the Nazi tattoo, and I'm just like, what fucking world do we live in now, where this guy who has likely done war crimes, then went back for more recently, has a Nazi tattoo throughout the whole thing. Now we're trying to...
Skipping ahead.
Oyster man and a US veteran, born and raised in Maine.
Okay. And so he went to GW. Now, Phoenix, since you're from the area, you can back me up on this. People who go to GW, that's not really the creme of the proletariat, is it? If somebody says that they're going to GW, they probably have a couple of country club memberships in the family. That is easily one of the most expensively dressed universities in DC. Not that, AU also, but my recollection, having been at AU, was that AU was kind of, while certainly being an expensive private university with lots of rich fucks all over it, I went there for a year on a full scholarship and found it depressing as hell, apart from a couple of professors who probably kind of saved my life because they were interested in, I was able to do things that interested me and they encouraged me. But, yeah. But, AU was generally kind of, the joke at AU was that it was usually the place where the assistance of people, the personal assistance of people who went to GW or Georgetown went. Yeah, not to mention, they're just expensive as shit. Like, I mean, AU, when I was going there, I couldn't have gone there without a full ride. It was like 20 grand a year. In this is in 1998 money. Like, that's 40 grand now.
Plattner joined the Marines out of high school, mostly out of like a young man's sense of duty and a bit of a call to adventure. He deployed to Iraq, serving for 4 years. Upon returning, he went to DC to attend George Washington University, but he had a lot of friends still deployed, and he felt like he wasn't pulling his weight.
Yeah,
So
I
he
remember hearing that too.
re-enlisted in the army, deploying to Afghanistan in 2010 and 2011. Returning in 2011 after his 4th tour, he found himself disillusioned with the military. Plattner says there was the baseline stress that one might experience through going through traumatic experiences like war, and then the realization on top of that I did not believe in the thing I'd taken part in.
He didn't believe in the thing he'd taken part in. Okay, and it's worth noting, before he goes back with fucking Blackwater for $250,000 base pay.
There was also the trauma in seeing his friends die or get injured, and all the civilians living in the countries they deployed in having their lives upended and destroyed, which this guy destroyed himself personally as well. It was all in the service of something that I could not find any value in, and that left me feeling very, very unmoored. So,
and if the story ended there, you could say, okay, that sounds like an anti-war vet in the making. Good. All the right sort of realizations you would hope somebody would have after participating in crimes like those. But that's not what happened.
When you hear that, you might actually think of Ron Kovic, and
Oh, you went to Howard? Oh, UMD. Oh, well, the Muppets and the Boondocks. That's a nice combination. Some of the best cultural production of the, like, past half century, I'd say.
He did do multiple tours as well. He didn't then do this. After his return to DC, he was in and out of college. He picked up bartending, and in 2016, he moved back to Maine, where he began gaining
a renewed call to service. Oh, fuck. I wish I could have checked that out. I had no idea that was there. I never actually saw the UMD. All I've seen in Baltimore, apart from BWI, and is the area around the railway station. Because I was supposed to go to... I had been invited into this, like, party or something like that one night, and I took the train up to Baltimore from DC. Did not realize that I did not have the money to get back. Could not actually figure out where this fucking venue was. Ended up just sort of walking around the area around Baltimore Amtrak station through like in the middle of the night, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do to get back to DC. But that is my main Baltimore memory.
From the Veterans Affairs Department, getting physical and mental.
I ended up sitting on a stoop talking with this old guy as large numbers of cop cars drove by.
Therapy. He felt a renewed call to service, and in 2018 got a job as a security contractor for the State Department in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I mean, as you do when you're an anti-war vet. Like, that's just the normal story. You figure out, oh wow, that was fucked up what I was doing. I shouldn't have been doing that. Nobody should do that. Wait, $250,000 a year base pay? Okay, I'm gonna do that again, I guess.
He was working for Blackwater. Not called Blackwater because they tried to do a PR rebrand after massacring Iraqis in 2007. But yes, here is a guy who, when he was older than me, after going through all this war in the service of US imperialism, participating in these wars that killed hundreds of thousands of civilians.
Million. I mean, in the case of Iraq, it was 1 million in the first 3 years.
In illegal wars for US imperialism, came back home, got...
Yeah, I know the area. I know the area you're talking about, because I had when I was living in that area, when I was going to AU, like one of my closest friends lived up that way, so I spent a fair bit of time there.
On his life, and then thought, now I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to Afghanistan under Donald Trump, who was dropping these huge bombs in Afghanistan, and I'm gonna serve the U.S. government again.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So this is the due diligence on fucking Graham Plattner. Okay. So here we go. This is from the Majority Report, who I otherwise have a fair bit of time. Actually, let me see. Oh, this will be good. Okay, this is the Vanguard. Cenk Uygur can't stop trashing Emma Vigeland and Sam Cedar over... Oh, is this... No, this... I don't know if this is about the Graham Plattner thing after all. Okay, so we'll go with this one, which is... This is from the Majority Report, which I otherwise have a fair bit of time for. Usually, I think they tend to do fairly good stuff. But here we go. Plattner's campaign marches on, despite intense hit pieces. I mean, I would have said, despite lots of good reasons to doubt that he's legit. But okay.
The latest in the Plattner.
So here we go. This is from the Majority Report. I have to say, I mean, the last Henson-related thing that was really good that I saw was the prequel to The Dark Crystal, which is still available on Netflix, I think. That I thought was really, really good, because I'd seen a bit of The Dark Crystal on television when I was, I think, 8. It just happened to be on, and I just remembered one or two things about, like, and not much about the story at all. But then I saw this video that Non-Compete did, like this puppet-based discussion of the Dark Crystal prequel as an example of the liberal fascist bargain, which was really good. They did a really good job on it. It was like, okay, I gotta check this out, and that was really good, actually.
Saga, and we should say, like, you know, I said this is obviously Oppo research. It was dumped. I think there's 2 or 3 things as the meta story around it is important to note.
Okay, what's the meta story?
They don't dump opposition research this early in a campaign unless they feel incredibly desperate.
Except, I mean, in this case, though, it could be that they just realized that it was the sort of thing that any decent person would immediately say, wait a second, are we sure about this guy?
I mean, Mills must have had internal polling that showed her, like, the race completely out of reach.
We don't really fully need that much internal polling, because there was a poll that came out this morning, and yes, this is like the day after or on the day in terms of when the sample
doesn't include any of the so-called scandal stuff.
Well, it includes, I think, the Reddit stuff, but not maybe the tattoo piece that has developed over the last 72 hours. But it shows him with an over 30-point lead on her, with a policy set that is straightforwardly against the genocide in Gaza and is oriented towards working-class people. And
I imagine all posts that he made on Reddit for the past 10 years.
Okay, I mean, we just saw him raising those Reddit posts in his own defense. So I'm curious. I haven't seen them, but I'm kind of curious why they seem to be suggesting there would be something that might be held against him.
You know, sort of like a comment dump. And there's nothing that would substantiate any concept of being a Nazi to the extent that we can make an assessment of any of that stuff and characterize it within that. the vast majority of his anti-Nazi stuff.
Anti-fascist explicitly, and even his Blackwater stint. We were talking a little bit off air.
Even his Blackwater stint.
It's not common, Brian, with people who don't have, are like trying to find work after being in the military.
Specifically the infantry. I mean, what you got to understand is that you don't have much of a job skill when you...
Oh, well, yes, but most people who are in the infantry, when they leave the infantry, they don't have a family that owns a company that can employ them.
Leave.
And this isn't like, okay, they're acting like he just immediately left the military and joined Blackwater, and that's bullshit. He left the military, he did some stuff for a couple of years, he went back in a different branch, he was in the Marines and then the Army, and then he came back from that, and he said, wow, that actually sucked, that's fucked up with what's going on, and then a few years after that, under the Trump administration, he fucking decides he wants to do more of it for $250K a year base pay over at Blackwater, occupying Afghanistan.
The infantry, and so if you're trying to make money and you're getting that's such an easy pipeline, because like, what else are you gonna do?
And he quit after 6 months and spoke about it as something that radicalized him. So I just...
No, that's actually out of order, because he'd actually said that his experience in the occupation of Iraq was something that might have radicalized him somewhat, and then he went to fucking Blackwater. In his fucking 30s.
Bernie Sanders does very well in Maine. The more populist, anti-establishment type politics do really well in Maine, and that's why Bernie Sanders is standing by Graham Plattner so aggressively, and I agree
Also,
with
Bernie Sanders is, for the most part, quite shit on imperialism, and has a soft spot for reactionaries.
And I think that this explanation from Plattner makes total sense.
Hey everyone, Graham Platter here. I want to talk to you about something. In 2007, when I was a young infantry sergeant in the Marine Corps, myself and some machine gunners I served Fallujah Romani with were on our third deployment. We were in a naval vessel and we pulled in for a Liberty port in Split, Croatia. We went ashore to do the thing that young Marines do, which tends to be carousing and sometimes getting tattoos. We wanted to get something that represented our jobs, our service, fighting at Fallujah and Romani.
Well, I mean, and you got, and what you got was an SS tattoo. That's actually, I mean, entirely representative of what they were doing in Iraq. So, okay, not wrong.
As machine gunners, we went ashore, we found a tattoo parlor after a fair amount of heavy carousing, and we found a tattoo on the wall, a piece of...
Whoever actually says carousing anymore?
Ash that looked like a terrifying skull and crossbones.
Oh, terrifying, especially because it's from Nazi uniforms. Hey, Badger.
We thought it looked cool, and so we got it. I have had this tattoo for the last 18 years.
Okay, he has had this tattoo. So, okay, that answers a question I had been curious about, because I heard he had covered it up. And, like, last week I had heard that. And what I had wondered was when. Because, okay, you can get a tattoo, you can get drunk and get a fucking tattoo and not realize what you got, and then you find out, you know, I can believe that part a little bit. People get shit-faced and they get tattoos they regret all the time. The question to me is, when did he realize that it was actually something deeply fucked up that he might want to get rid of? And the answer is, even in 2025, he had not, in fact, decided that it was that having a Nazi tattoo was a fucked up thing and he should get rid of it. That's so, like, at this point there is absolutely no excuse. I mean, and it does call a lot of things into doubt.
I re-enlisted into the United States Army with this tattoo, where I was screened for hate and gang-related tattoos.
Well, it's interesting. That just tells you how good the screening is, that a fucking Totenkopf did not raise any fucking alarm bells.
I worked for the State Department as a contractor, where I got a full physical, which included screening my tattoos.
So what? Yeah, I mean, like, and this is, okay, so what he's doing here, remember, we were just hearing that, the radicalizing experience and essentially suggesting he's an anti-war vet or something like that. And here he is relying on the political judgment of the U.S. Army and the State Department. Which, no. The State Department doesn't have a problem with Nazis. Blackwater definitely doesn't have any problem with Nazis. I mean, the fucking owners of Blackwater want a Christian nationalist fascist dictatorship. They're kind of cool with Nazis, is what I'm saying. So, yeah, no.
I've gone through life with this thing, taking my shirt off, having photographs taken, videos taken.
Yeah, so there's absolutely no way somebody didn't remark on that, especially after 2015, when all these spotter things were going around, these spotter graphics saying that a tattoo like that is a symbol, that is an SS symbol. That's that is not just something that neo-Nazis have appropriated or something. This isn't Pepe the Frog we're talking about. This is OG Nazi shit.
I've been very, very open in my life with the fact that I had a skull and crossbones on my chest.
Yeah, fuck Blackwater. And, I mean, joining in 2018 is a choice. Because at that point, they were already notorious. I mean, they've been notorious for at least a decade at that point. Their name was just synonymous with major atrocities.
Because that's what I thought it was. It's come to my attention that it has a stark resemblance to a symbol that is used by neo-Nazis.
That's not correct. It does not have a stark resemblance to a symbol that is used by neo-Nazis. It is a symbol that was on the uniforms of the SS.
And I want to say that was not the intent at all. And the idea that I've been going around with something like that utterly horrifies me.
Okay, that is actually more horrified than he sounded in the other clip that I've seen of him talking about it, where he kind of sort of brushes it off.
I know that symbols like this can be incredibly damaging to people, and the idea that I've had it all these years, and it could have been read like that.
Yeah, I mean, and the idea that it wasn't read like that, despite, I mean, one of the things the Cavernacle quite correctly points out, is that you get a fair number of World War II buffs in the military, where he spent a fair bit of his life. And so the idea that these guys that he would have been in the military with, who probably would have seen him with his shirt off more than once, that none of them remarked on it and say, hey, dude, that's a Totenkopf, right? I don't buy it.
Is incredibly troubling. I have lived a life dedicated to anti-fascism, anti-racism.
I mean, what we have in terms of a background of progressive politics goes back about 3 years.
Anti-Nazism. I think that racism and anti-Semitism are a long scourge on our society and a long scourge on our politics, and I think it has no place in our world. For that reason, I've gone and gotten it covered up. Okay?
Oh, okay, yeah, so he just got it covered up? Yeah, not buying it. Also, what the fuck is that?
I went to a tattoo parlor, and I got...
Okay. The amount of grace I was willing to extend is, long enough to have been in the presence of somebody who recognizes it with his shirt off. Which, I mean, in the context of his time in the military, it would be fairly quickly. I can give people that first night. Maybe, I mean, but the fact that, what is it, 18 years he's had that thing on there and supposedly nobody remarked on it? No way.
My time too. Thank you all very much, and I really appreciate your support through all of this.
And we have a little footage of that town hall too.
Yeah, but before we show the footage of the town hall, let's characterize Gunquit, because Brian has been up there, and I spent a summer there.
Okay,
as a college kid.
Speed this up a little bit.
I'm not going to go into the stories, but I was there 40 years ago, and it's a really sort of bizarre mix of a town. It's a beach town. The summer population, I'm sure, is sort of a little bit different, but it was a big mix of French Canadian old money town. Gunquit is I don't know.
Working class, like the medium income is something.
600 people.
Almost
It's
half. Just assume, especially if you and your other friends have matching tattoos, that it's okay. And assume also if you, I mean, I think I'm fairly well educated. I didn't know that was that kind of symbol.
Really? I mean, I buy that even less because again, there were these spots. I mean, even if you had not somehow noticed that it's on the uniforms of the SS, a fairly commonly remarked on feature of those uniforms, because you don't usually see a fucking death's head on as a uniform accessory. Hey, Riveroon. Even if we assume that you also have not seen that Mitchell and Webb Are We the Baddies bit where they extensively mention, you know, part of the reason that whichever one it is who is asking Are We the Baddies has concluded that they might be the baddies is because of that symbol. Like, the idea that people do not know that, and then, again, these spotter sheets starting around 2015, not buying it.
And then also, if you think you're going through these kinds of screenings with the government, you might just assume, especially if you and your other friends have matching tattoos, that it's okay. And,
well, yeah, but the thing is, like, okay, the government has been willing to just sort of accept significant Nazi problems in the Army and the Marine Corps. And when he was getting screened for Blackwater, it was under the Trump State Department. Like, they probably would have offered him a jump in base pay for a Nazi tattoo.
Look, the discourse on Twitter or within like leftist kind of circles on the internet is just not matching what we're seeing in Maine in terms of the poll numbers. And if you look into
what do you mean? Okay, it's not matching it. What do you mean it's not matching it? Like, okay, so his poll numbers in Maine are good. Does that somehow mean that it's not legitimate to say that there are various things about this guy that are dodgy, including the Nazi tattoo, including the Blackwater, including saying, wow, what I did in the Marines was horrible, that I didn't believe in that anymore, so I decided I was going to join the Army and then Blackwater. Like, yeah, not buying it.
like the crosstabs of who Plattner is appealing to, it's like some of the best numbers I've seen for a primary candidate.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't actually mean that these aren't problems. That just means, and it's quite true, that this country is full of people who are desperate for something that feels like an alternative. And not just this country. You see, this is how everybody got so excited about boring-ass Jeremy Corbyn in Britain in 2015. Nobody gave a fuck about Corbyn. And then all of a sudden, he was, like, the thing people were pinning their hopes on because he almost sounded like he was from the same planet as working class people who supported the Labour Party all their lives. I mean, it's the same sort of thing. So you have just absolutely horrible alternatives, and this guy sounds like the only fresh thing on the menu, and the tendency is a lot of people don't look a gift horse in the mouth. A lot of people do not do their due diligence. They say, okay, this guy sounds better. He's at least saying at least some things that make some sense. And that's, that's all they do. It's how we got Obama, for example. It's how... Yeah, I mean, it's what Bernie Sanders has been skating by on for ages.
That speaks about, like, Medicare for all and billionaires in this way. And if people want to go back and listen
is all it takes. That is literally all it takes. And the thing is, we should actually be a little bit worried that people are such cheap dates. We should be worried about that because that means that it is very easy to manipulate people. Like, look at fucking Fetterman. Look at how Fetterman... I mean, I remember comrades in Pennsylvania were warning that this guy was not the way people from, like, out-of-state progressives were imagining him. They were saying that their experience of him in holding state office in Pennsylvania was that he was a really racist asshole. Which is exactly what he turned out to be. but there was this idea that he dressed like shit, and so therefore he must be progressive. But yeah, so I mean, that is actually something we should be worried about, and it is part of why sort of reaching out and helping people actually develop standards, you know, so that it's not just so that so that they don't just immediately have their heads turned by the first person to say, I think you should have health care. That they don't even look into anything else and whether he's even likely to follow through on that. That's a problem that we have, actually. And the fact that apparently some of the people who get a lot of views as people who kind of are there, who serve the purpose of telling other people, you know, their angle on politics, is actually also concerning.
With him, or my interview with him from a few months ago, my opening question to him was, are you another Fetterman? And he unequivocally answered no and explained why. And
okay, but I mean, at this point, all that means is he knew the right answer to the question. And if he has been saying pro-Palestine things, I think then he would realize that not being seen as another Fetterman would be important, because he would recognize that Fetterman is seen as like easily the most ghoulish motherfucker in Congress.
Much of it is oriented around his desire to end the genocide in Gaza, and he speaks about that incredibly clearly. And, you know, like,
okay, but the thing is, again, people piggyback in on these things. Another example of this, who I've seen is actually now sort of shown up haunting the pro-Palestine space, is Sarah Kendzior of Freedom House. Extremely dodgy person. She literally has a PhD in infiltrating and manipulating activist dissident communities on social media. And she has a lot of form for doing exactly that in very damaging ways. And she's gotten called out for it. She's never been showed the slightest accountability for any of it. And now I've seen that she's sort of trying to get into the pro-Palestine space. Just to give another example. Or like fucking Sean King, who apparently has decided that grifting BLM supporters is not the way to go because he's been called out so many times. So he started trying to grift pro-Palestinian people. Unfortunately for him, there's so much overlap between those two groups that it hasn't necessarily gone very well for him. But, I mean, that's the thing. You gotta actually do due diligence on these fucking people. Otherwise, you just end up constantly going through this cycle where it's like, oh my god, this guy's great, finally, somebody's saying what we need. Holy shit, what the fuck is he doing? What the fuck did he say? I can't believe this. I trusted that guy, and repeat it infinitely. We keep on having that cycle, and we have that cycle because so many people are like allergic to due diligence.
To rebuild the Democratic Party in a way that isn't these like focus tested, squeaky clean, professional class candidates that always underperform in states like Maine.
I mean, yeah, except the underlying premise here is that there is some way to, I don't know, to democratize the Democratic Party, and it is designed to make that impossible, is the thing. There's literally no way that that can be done from below, and that's the only way it could be done, because everybody above is totally fine with how things are now, because that's what gave them their positions of power and their access to shitloads of fucking money.
The folks have to have some sort of like reckoning with the fact that like we're not going to just dismiss people because they're veterans or something like
That's not what's going on here.
That there may.
I mean, it's not like if he's. There's a difference between somebody who was in the military, involved in all sorts of fucking war crimes, and comes out of there and says, "Wow, that was fucked up. I'm going to dedicate my life to opposing that sort of thing." And somebody who does what fucking Plattner did, which is keep on going back and getting a Nazi tattoo, and then going, well, the government said my Nazi tattoo was cool, so I didn't realize there was anything wrong with it.
Maybe some things in their history that they'll have to explain. It may not necessarily be that squeaky clean, especially...
Well, yeah, but the thing is, sometimes... First of all, actually, I mean, she keeps on using squeaky clean in sort of... It's like... She's using it two ways at the same time. Because the thing is... From an establishment standpoint, his military record would read as squeaky clean, because they like ex-military. You know, that was a big thing about, you know, fucking Buttigieg. You know, he was Mr. Be War Gay, do war crimes, bragging about his time at McKinsey and his time at Bagram concentration camp. I mean, that is a squeaky clean record from the point of view of the establishment. But the thing is, we ought to have standards. We ought to be saying, okay, well, what does it mean? Like, where does he stand now? That's where he was then. And sometimes there will be things people did that just, they at that point have absolutely no business being in any kind of leadership position ever again. Like, somebody... Like, okay, let's say somebody who was in the IDF in Gaza comes out of there, traumatized, works through that, realizes Zionism is fucked up. What he did was fucked up. That shouldn't have happened. Palestine should be free. He's worked out all that stuff. I still don't think that motherfucker deserves any kind of leadership position anywhere near any kind of Palestinian solidarity or anything else, because... that's not somebody who can be trusted necessarily, because they already fucked up in the biggest possible way you can possibly fuck up in terms of like just committing crimes against humanity. What I'm saying is they're fucking standards. We need to have standards.
Because there's no equivalent left-wing...
Otherwise this is just lesser evil discourse.
Oppo research dump capacity for these centrist candidates.
Oh, but yes, there is. And in fact, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, we're doing that sort of thing all the time. In fact, it's much easier when it comes to a lot of these, they call them centrist candidates. They're really right-wing candidates, so that's what I'll call them. It is actually very easy because, you know, they can keep their shirts on. I mean, you can find all sorts of reasons they suck and point them out. And the thing is, they don't even hide it because they're so fucking out of touch, they don't think that it's a deal breaker for anybody.
That can be deployed on them in this way. People have to understand that this is specific to Maine and their political environment.
No, it really isn't, though. First of all, the issue is not specific to Maine. If you put a guy like this, who has a dodgy past and a really dodgy tattoo, but he sounds like he shares the priorities of ordinary working people, and is willing to sort of buck the system on a couple of major issues, like healthcare and whether genocide is bad, you put him anywhere. I don't give a shit. Maine, put him in Pittsburgh, put him in fucking, you know, put him in Chillicothe, Ohio. I mean, I don't know actually enough about Chillicothe, Ohio or so, but put him in Dayton. Dayton, I know enough that I can say this. Or any number of other such places. And have him stand in a Democratic primary against a shitty right-wing incumbent in a seat that shitty right-wing incumbent keeps on losing to like a shitty, far-right Republican asshole. and you'll get the same fucking effect, including the failure to do due diligence and the failure to see why certain things are actually as dodgy as they look.
And this is a much more rural state. And in the same way that you had a lot of liberals get upset that Bernie Sanders is a little more Second Amendment than Hillary Clinton was in 2016, Plattner is going to be more of a Maine kind of rural Democrat.
A Maine, so that means the Blackwater and the Nazi shit? Like, how are those Maine things? Like, okay, I've read a lot of Stephen King books. Are you telling me that that's how Maine is?
And folks should probably try to accept that, because we're trying to elect the people that are most likely to vote to end the genocide in Gaza, to vote to raise taxes on billionaires, and to make this country more livable.
I mean, this is just, okay, this is just the flip side of standard liberal lesser evil discourse. And the trouble is, I mean, the fundamental problem is the same, because it is literally just an argument against having any kind of standards. It is political incel discourse. Because the thing is, if you already say, you know, I mean, it's like what Ta-Nehisi Coates said, you know, about the genocide. He said, maybe the reason people don't trust a lot of Democrats to, you know, defend our democracy or whatever, is because, you know, if you can't draw the line at genocide, what makes anyone think that you're going to draw the line at democracy? And it's the same thing, because if you're saying that we should not have a standard and say, okay, there are things about this guy's past that are a bit sketchy, he does not seem to really understand why participating in some of the worst war crimes in a generation was a bad thing, and the Nazi tattoo and stuff, and then, like, where does it end? Like, if there's no standard, if there's nothing that says, wait a second, this is kind of dodgy, where are you going to draw that line then? Because at some point, you've got to draw a fucking line. Otherwise, you might as well just give up. There's no point in, like, even pretending to be an alternative at that point, because you end up in the same place.
Everybody. And I just...
Yeah, oh, well, Riveroon, you were quite right. I mean, in fact, I explicitly said I did not really know much of anything about the Plattner thing. I was very explicit about that, because I had not followed him. I don't really follow anything to do with Maine. I knew his name, and I knew about the tattoo thing, and I had not looked into it, because honestly, there are other things going on that struck me as more important. But, you know, so I didn't want to give any kind of real take other than saying kind of it depends on things I don't know, which is basically what I said came down to, though probably less coherently. Yeah, I really, no offense taken, because you're absolutely right, and I'm pretty sure I made the point of saying that quite a few times in what I remember being a significant ramble.
You know, I want us to be more strategic here, and in our
How is this
coalition
strategic?
understanding that a Democrat, like Zoran's politics aren't going to look exactly the same as Plattner's.
Yeah, but that's not the point. First of all, like, surely, even accepting that this idea that finding yeah, it can, I mean, it can definitely be. There are all sorts of things that particularly will attract working class people, but Plattner's not working class. Plattner comes from some fucking money. He had his working class people work for his family. Oh yeah, I mean, there are definitely anti-war vets are a thing, and I think that's good, because what matters to me fundamentally, with certain exceptions where lines have been crossed that you really just can't go back on, is where you go afterwards. Like, okay, so you fell, you fell for the ruling class propaganda and you did a thing, you joined an institution that in retrospect you realize sucks. Now you're out of it. Now you've realized that. What are you doing? Have you drawn the right conclusions from that? Or do you join fucking Blackwater? That is where I am on that. Like, there are anti-war vets who've done some very good things, do some very useful things, and do not, like, valorize, try to take their military experience and make that a source of general political credibility, because really, as they correctly acknowledge, it really isn't. But instead, as an inspiration to work against the institutions they were part of. And if somebody's doing that, that's cool. I'm for it. That is one of the things I am for, is people leaving these institutions and working against them. But that just is not the vibe that Plattner gives. Yeah. Yeah, I saw, I had wondered last week when I heard he'd covered it up, when that had happened. Because if he'd covered it up, within a year of getting it, I would say, okay, that was probably a sincere decision. My question fundamentally was, is this something that he did at a time when he knew it would be good for his political career? Or is this old footage that surfaced and he had already covered it up, not knowing that he was going to be running for office at any point? Because those are just very different things. And so, the statement that we saw of his a few minutes ago actually really clarified that, and he said he only just fucking covered it up. And pretends that that he had no idea what it was for like 17 years, during which Nazi symbols have actually had a lot of discussion. Around Trump, around like Ukraine, there have been all sorts of opportunities for somebody to say, wait a second, that tattoo looks like one of those symbols they keep showing us.
And his platform, but
yeah, he literally just, since he's been running in this primary.
Important, fundamental.
I was being very careful last week, specifically because I had not, for lack of looking, really, I had not seen anything that clearly stated when it had happened, and I didn't want to issue, a definitive kind of take on the subject if it turned out he had done that years ago because he realized it was fucked up. And this is really old footage. Because, again, there's a big difference between that. And between realizing it's fucked up when you don't have a political career in sight, and realizing it's fucked up and covering it up when you're already running for office.
Mental foundation is what's key, which are the things I just mentioned. Going after, taxing the rich aggressively and reorienting our foreign policy in a way so that we're not committing genocide. And I am convinced that he is by far the best candidate still in that race to do that.
Yeah, but the alternatives, that's just because the alternatives are so much worse. Like, literally, everybody he's potentially running against, whether in the primary or elsewhere, is just an absolute fucking ghoul. So, of course he, if that is the entire standard, and we don't say that there are, like, red lines that should not be crossed.
Yeah, the attack is now that he joined a socialist paramilitary group. I would also, but here's also the other, there's one other argument.
It is extremely important in this election for the Democrats to make ground, if not take the Senate as well.
See, this is one of the things where I really can't get with the Majority Report on, because they're so electorally centered. Because we shouldn't, yes, if the Democrats can't do that, then, despite the massive unpopularity of their opponents, then they just suck on, they suck like a fucking black hole, really. But that's not what we should be focusing on. What we should be focusing on is the fact that the polls show everybody fucking hates Trump. Well, most people fucking hate Trump. And yet the Democrats are not benefiting from that. Because, for the most part, they're either useless or actively complicit. And so the result is you have millions and millions of people who are trying to find ways to fight this. And in some cases are already fighting this in all sorts of useful ways. You look at all the raid resistance and stuff like that, which is all great. You look at, sort of relocation funds and survival funds for trans people who are trying to get the hell out of their home states. All that sort of stuff. And what we really should be doing is using this as a moment for independent working class organizing to be gaining ground, because the best time to be doing that is when the ruling class parties have no credibility, when people just largely agree that things are disastrous, and nobody trusts anyone in the political class really to fix it. Those are the most favorable possible conditions to have to be talking to and, joining in organizations that are already there in terms of community defense and, survival funds and mutual aid and stuff like that, and building more of them and building the kind of working independent power that we need in order to really get somewhere. That's where our focus really ought to be. And if we do that successfully, the Democrats will do what the Democrats do, which is take notice and say, wait a second, we've gone so far to the right that nobody gives a fuck about us anymore. And then they will start, throwing on their kente cloth and doing a nice big hello fellow comrades sort of thing. And they'll be and they'll start, having some, somewhat progressive policies, maybe cops should only get to murder one unarmed, defenseless black person in their lifetime before getting fired. Or, maybe if you are from an underserved community and you did an MBA at an HBCU, followed by a PhD at Harvard, then you should be able to get free health care provided that you also are able to come up with the, recite pi to the 50th digit. One of these other wonderfully complicated, means-tested fucking policies. Because when they notice that, think about the response to the 2020 uprising, when suddenly Biden was having to pretend to move ever so slightly to the left in order to appear not to be just completely out of touch with the political moment. That is what they do. We don't need to be focusing on this stuff as our main priority or something like that, because if we are effective, then they will be swept along in order to be relevant. Or at least to sound relevant.
And I'm sorry. There are two options in Maine in this primary race, and it's Plattner and it's Mills. And the idea that Janet Mills could beat Susan Collins is absurd. It's patently absurd. I understand she's one governor.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Okay. So the Blackwater guy with the Nazi tattoo could beat Susan Collins. And he has shown some sign of kind of left-ish leaning politics over the past 3 years of his life. Okay. So you're saying that despite with those despite those obvious caveats, the fact that he can potentially beat Susan Collins is enough reason to back him and just sort of dismiss real concerns about his fucking fucked up biography and the Nazi tattoo and stuff. But then again, are you saying that is your only standard? that if the person could beat fucking Susan Collins, that you really wouldn't insist on anything else. Like, let's say he also said, yeah, he wasn't all that keen on... Let's say he said, okay, since this is actually a more common thing in the political class, to say, yeah, I'm for universal health care, but I also want to do genocide in Gaza. Well, would you say, yeah, but he's a voice for universal health care and he could probably beat Susan Collins? Or would you say, that's no good? You know, at some point you have to either declare a standard or admit that you don't have one. And if you don't have one, that's a problem. Because things just, I mean, a big part of why things just keep getting worse is that there's no standard being enforced. Including standards on the quality of link spam, like that thing that just showed up in chat. Like, that wasn't even coherent this time. It was just
two
crap.
times in a row. She's older than Collins. I think it's absurd because she's not offering anything that differentiates her from her. She herself said that she's doing a good job. Like, what is the point of her campaign? We know that she was reluctantly, she was recruited. She was reluctant to run. So even if you are looking at this from a Democratic, moderate centrist, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but what if? How about if we're looking at this from a working class leftist perspective of some form or another? I haven't really seen much to do with how they take criticism, but I mean, I can definitely see where you'd have objections to their political analysis, because I feel like this is weak. I mean, this is weak on multiple levels. It's weak in terms of identifying what our objective in a crucial moment ought to be, and then in terms of saying, wait a second, is this something to worry about? Like, I mean, this is like, honestly, with when the, you know, between the Blackwater and the Nazi town, I mean, are you really saying that this is the fucking best we could do? Like, I mean, this is just all very fucked up. I have a fair bit of time for them because I think on other things I've seen them do some fairly good things, and they do occasionally do a good job of just roasting people who deserve it. But this isn't good. This
perspective, the bottom line is that seat needs to be taken, and Plattner has
the bottom line is that we need to actually be building our own power, because nobody's coming to save us. Like, let's say Graham Plattner gets in. That doesn't really change a whole lot of much, okay? Because the thing is, using ICE against the working class is bipartisan. The difference is whether you go off on TV and say, I'm going to be terrorizing the population with ICE, or whether you do it quietly so only the affected communities even notice it's going on, unless, you know, a lot of these things are very much bipartisan. A lot of these things, the only real disagreement is stylistic or tactical. And that's not good enough. The stakes are way too fucking high. And we need to just realize nobody's coming to save us, and that's okay because we're all we need. But we've got to actually be finding each other, organizing, getting together, actually building that sort of power independently of ruling class institutions. And right now we're being handed really kind of an ideal moment because so many people are terrified of what's going on. So many people are also involved in organizing direct resistance to aspects of what's going on. And there really is not much danger of ruling class co-option, just because no ruling class politician is really seriously in danger of being adequate to the moment. I mean, like, the closest thing you've got, I mean, like, Mamdani, but that's just New York. Yeah, I mean, there's a limit to how much co-opting he can do. And I will say, sometimes you actually get, occasionally there are gifts. Occasionally, at local level, like the mayor of Chicago, who comes out of actually one of the most radical teachers' unions in the country, the CTU. I have a bunch of friends in it. And solid union. Much better than the, Randy Weingarten and her outfit, I would say, in terms of just solidarity and militancy and stuff. Well, and that is the background of this mayor, and he was actually saying, just in the past week or two, what's going on right now is, the government has declared war on the working class, and the working class should fight back with a general strike. And it's like, that's not terrible. That's actually very good. And to have somebody in, from on that sort of a platform saying this is a thing that should happen, actually is something that we can potentially use. But this other stuff, like, what, even if somebody like Plattner gets in, it's still the same party. It's still completely top down in its organization. I've never felt for any particular antipathy towards either of them, but I've never been, like, they are not people I really seek out their takes. The only thing I really watch of them, for the most part, is them dunking on assholes. Which they do reasonably well. But so I don't really have strong feelings about either of them, but I'm really unimpressed with this. And with that, it is time for me to wrap up for tonight. Thank you to everyone for joining in. I hope you enjoyed the stream. And if you enjoyed the stream, I will be back tomorrow night at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Also, if you enjoyed the stream, there's a whole Discord based on the stream. It is the Discord of the stream. And there's a link for it right there. I will be back tomorrow night at 11:30 U.S. Eastern Time, and I look forward to seeing you then. Have a good night, everybody.